Disconnects us from other people. And if we feel disconnected, what can we do about it? I'm Talia from Rebel Love, your Let Love Begin Summit host, and today I'm speaking with Jacqui Olliver. Jacqui is a psychosexual relationship specialist at endtheproblem.com. Her unique views and insights on sexual function, human psychology, and emotions are heralded as having the potential to change the universal perspective on health and relationships. Jacqui is also a co-founder of the Life Education Initiative and Mates Cafe Connect Up, a platform committed to erasing loneliness. Jacqui is here today to highlight some of the common behaviours that disconnect people from you and what you can do instead. Welcome, Jacqui. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you, Talia. It's lovely to be here.
Yes, I'm so glad. Can you tell us a little bit about your story and how you got into the work you're doing now?
I got into what I was doing because there was no one who could help me. I had been sexually molested when I was a teenager, had depression kind of after that, and lost a partner after 15 years. He left me in a different way. He just suddenly died overnight.
Oh my goodness.
And I had been unable to orgasm the whole of my adult life, and my partner who died, who had developed erectile dysfunction, possibly linked to my own sexual problems. And so when he died, it was a real wake-up call. It was actually on our 15th anniversary together. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I don't want to go the rest of my life not being able to feel fulfilled as a human being. And so I went on a mission to find the answers to solve male and female sexual dysfunction problems. And I also wanted to overcome emotional challenges as well, because they appear to be linked together. But they're also the two biggest things that people suffer from is emotional disconnection and sexual malfunctions, what I call, which are really just caused by focusing on the wrong technique at the wrong time. And figured it out, had some help along the way, came up with some completely new and unique ways of dealing with these problems by understanding how to control your biology as well as your psychology.
Wow, awesome. Wow, that sounds like a really intense journey that you've been through.
Yeah, so I understand both parts of the problem from having experienced it myself and understanding the stress and the strain that puts on a relationship, to them being able to figure it out as a female, to be able to orgasm on demand instead of never,
right,
is pretty cool. And figuring things out as I became older as well. For example, in a vaginal dryness, that's easy. It's just one technique and it's never a problem again.
Right,
because you know how to coordinate your body, your biology, and the way that you think, so that you can bring about that desired outcome.
And unfortunately, I know that sexual dysfunction is quite common, especially a lot of women don't orgasm, which is it is a very sort of sad reality, but it doesn't have to be that way. So can you tell us a little bit about what a psychosexual relationship specialist is, more specifically?
That's a title that I gave to myself. I deal with the emotions, thinking, and sexual aspects of a person's relationship with themselves and also with others.
Okay, awesome. And how can a psychosexual relationship specialist help someone struggling in a relationship? So I'm sure people come to you at all stages of where they're at. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
All right, so I help people become in charge of their biology, so take charge of their body, as well as their thinking, because you can't do one without the other, right? And so in that way, they become in charge of how they feel, they become in charge of how they want to live their life and what direction they want their life to take as an individual and in a relationship, so that they can stop sabotaging their happiness with the wrong actions, the wrong behavior, and the wrong thinking.
Right. Wow, you really packaged it up there. That's awesome. So I know that in this summit, we're speaking about specifically people who are coming out of a relationship, learning to let go of their past relationship, going through the healing phase, and going and learning to open up to their next relationship. So how might these tools that you offer be useful in this period of their life, that breakup phase or healing phase?
The biggest component that we're dealing with here is our emotions, the emotions that a person is going through, but also getting clear on what they want. So
Right.
a relationship breakdown or a breakup is one of the fastest ways to get really clear on what you want. However, many people are focused on what they don't want.
Right.
And there's a part of our brain called the reticular activating system, which makes us notice more of whatever we're focusing our attention on. So it filters out all of those millions of bytes of data just to a chunk of what we're noticing. So what this looks like when we are at the end of a relationship, for example, is that we're noticing everything that's wrong with our partner, every tiny little thing that they're doing wrong, and then our brain helps us notice more of it, right? So when we are at the end of that relationship, it's really super critical to start focusing your attention on what you want, on the qualities that you want. Most importantly, how you want to feel in your relationship. I want to feel satisfied. I want to feel happy. I want to feel connected. I love that feeling of being connected, and really start connecting yourself with those feelings. And then that part of your brain that filters out everything to all exclusion starts focusing on finding these feelings for you. Situations, bringing situations, people, you notice them, everything's always there. This just helps you to notice more of your chosen direction. And an interesting way that this works is like when you are going to buy a new car, or you've just bought a new car, or you're looking for a red car, and suddenly you start seeing red cars everywhere. There aren't more of them there. It's just that part of your brain directing you because you've instructed it to find more.
Right. Seeing the evidence for what
Yes.
that you're. Okay, that's really great advice. I feel like that's sometimes a difficult task for some people. It's easier for us to say, I don't like this, than for us to make a decision on what we do like or do want. Do you have
Well,
any, can you speak to that? Yeah.
Absolutely. A really good way of doing that, most simple way, is to get a sheet of paper, put a line down the middle, and write down the things that you observed that you didn't like in your relationship. And also on the other side, then you can look at it and think, well, what's the opposite of that? This is showing me what I don't want. What do I want from that experience? What do I want? And that's a really good way to get started in the process.
Nice. That's great advice, because I notice that a lot. People, a lot of my friends will be like, I don't know what I want, but I know exactly what I don't want.
Yeah, and we have a tendency to think about what we don't want and ruminate on what we don't want, whereas the most important thing is to get clear on what you do want. How do you want to feel? How do you want to be? But also, you also need to take a really deep look at yourself and, well, there's a matter of cause and effect. How did I contribute to my relationship breakdown? And it usually comes down to communication and the ways in which we communicate.
Yeah, I know that is a tough time, and I feel like it really depends on the circumstance of the breakup, but often, we're talking about a few, months down the line, not straight away jumping into something new, unless that's your thing, which is totally fine as well. But yeah, giving yourself that space to really, like you said, do the work and figure it out. And perhaps writing, I think, I'm not sure about you, perhaps maybe because a lot of your clients would write stuff down, but I know that I have a lot of friends who actually have resistance to even writing anything down.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I don't want to do that, but what you'll realize is that you will get clearer, you will become clearer when you write things down.
Mhm.
And it's just the way our brain works, when we engage more of our senses, then we're going to have a clearer idea and a clearer picture. But even if you don't start writing down what you want, it's important to just start switching up your thoughts, so that when you do notice that you're going down a negative track, and your mind will just spiral down there so easily if you don't stop it. Right. So the way of coming back to a point of balance is to not, part of the emotional reset technique, which I teach, is to bring your awareness back into your body, because that's going to stop your mind from taking a piece of information or taking a memory or taking what someone said and just running with it in the wrong direction.
Mhm.
And that's always going to lead you to how you don't want to feel. So if you're more focused on how you do want to feel, then you can start taking responsibility for your thoughts, your words, and your actions to keep yourself on track.
Mm. I love that. I mean, I've talked a lot about taking responsibility in a lot of these summit series. So thank you for mentioning that. I know there are lots of ways that we behave in relationships, sometimes unconsciously, that could contribute to a deep connection or a painful disconnection from our partners. Can you highlight some behaviors that help us connect to our partners?
Okay, well, I call these real behaviors, right? So real behaviors, they're either going to lead you towards an amazing connection, but if you don't respect them, then they're going to lead to a loss of attraction and a lack of connection. So number one on the list is respect, and that's respect for yourself, but also respect for your partner. And so we've got different ways of communicating, and as we know, men and women are very different. So that communication is going to break down because we have different ways of expressing. For example, men will get to the point, women will use many words to communicate the same thing in a completely different way, and we will become frustrated with our partner because one's not using enough words to give us that bigger picture that we want. We want all that color. And a male may become frustrated because we're just not getting to the point fast enough for them. They're becoming frustrated. So that's just an example. But on a bigger picture, respect is looking after yourself. It's when we are at the beginning of a relationship, we're on our best behavior. We are presenting the very best version of ourselves. Once we get into a relationship, however, our standards drop. We become lazier. We don't put in that extra effort necessarily to keep ourselves looking attractive, to keep ourselves in shape. And it's really disrespectful to a partner to just let yourself slide, because then we're not being fully present and engaging in the relationship and enhancing attraction. So it's working towards looking your best, being your best, and constantly growing yourself as a person. Right? So when you're growing together as a couple emotionally, which is you're both aiming to be better people, just a little bit every day, then you're going to keep enhancing your attraction and enhancing your connection together, growing as individuals, growing as a couple. And that's a real thrill when you have a partner who you can see is making the effort to grow and to be a good version. So you're out in public and they're not looking shabby, they're looking hot, they're making that effort. And then you know that as a mate, that they're a good match for you. you're going to enhance that emotional compatibility because you know that you're both making an effort here. Whereas on the other side, you've got complacency, which is kind of the opposite of respect. So moving on to the second point of being real is empathy and empathetic communication. Now, each of these aspects of real, we've got respect, empathy, awareness, and listening, and they all work together. So empathy is understanding that sometimes we're just not at our best. We're becoming emotionally triggered. Those triggers are building up. They're getting on top of us. We're awful, right? Because sometimes we forget the respect, and the responsibility is part of respect. And we don't take responsibility for how we're feeling. And then we become on edge, grumpy, frustrated, not nice to be with. But we all do it, right? So it's having empathy for the other person, that they're not always going to be at the best. We're not always going to be at our best. And therefore, accepting and not arguing with reality. If it's our partner who is upset, to ask questions to try and gain perspective of where they're coming from. Because we're very limited in the way that we only have our life experience.
Right.
Mm-hmm. We're very experienced in how we feel and how we think, but no two people are the same in their life experience and how they view the world. And so it's just, when we're in control of our emotional triggers, we're in charge of our emotions and how we express them, then we are able to be more empathetic with our partner and what they're going through, so that we can connect during those times of disconnection when we're wanting to run from the hills and just, no, get away from me. We're able to, when we're in charge of our emotions, we can be in the state of calm, then to communicate empathetically. From there, another key ingredient is awareness. So our awareness has a lot to do with cause and effect. Every thought, word, and action has an effect on the world around us. It has an effect on ourselves, and it has an effect on the people that we're in relationship with. And so again, it comes back to our emotional triggers. It comes back to being emotionally balanced, so that we have that greater awareness. Because when we're feeling emotionally triggered, our prefrontal cortex shuts down to a degree, so we can't think clearly. We can't hear clearly. We can't talk. This is why we revert back to the only thing that we can really think of is past memories of similar events. That's why everybody dredges up the past in an argument. It's like you can't think clearly. You can't think of anything, of any new information coming in, but you can think of this similar thing and this similar thing and this similar thing, and you just throw them out. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to explain what's going on and explain the situation, but you're drawing on past knowledge, and your partner's becoming frustrated with you because they're trying to give you new information that will help the situation make sense. But when you're emotionally triggered, you can't take in that new information until you resolve the emotional trigger.
Right.
So awareness is part of ERT, part of the emotional reset technique. It's bringing your awareness back into your body to stop your mind from spiraling out of control and making negative perceptions. Because when you're triggered and you can't think clearly, you are going to start thinking negatively and incorrectly read the situation. So awareness is very important. The next aspect of being real in your communication is listening, giving your partner your full attention. And if you want your partner's attention, instead of just walking into the room and saying, hey, we should do this, blah, 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 we've got to do this, or what do you think about this? That's being disrespectful of the other person, because they're doing their own thing. They've got something else going on. their mind is busy and their mind is full. They're trying to figure something out, or even they're just taking time out for themselves and playing a game, right? So it's respectful to get their attention first. It's like, hey, sweetie, can I have your attention for a minute? Then that person turns around and gives you their attention. Now they're going to be able to hear you. If you haven't got their full attention, they might hear the words, but they're not necessarily taking it in. And
Right.
this is where a lot of relationships fall down,
Mm-hmm.
because we are so distracted in this modern living that we don't give people our full attention. Now, on the other side of that coin, if your partner is asking for your attention and yours might be doing something on front of your laptop and you're just, yep, I'm listening, and you carry on doing what you're doing, you're not listening. Your brain is going to take in bits and pieces of that information, but it's not going to be the real conversation. And this is interesting around gift giving times, that we're kind of listening, but we're not really. And then we go out shopping and we think, oh, what did they say about what I'm supposed to buy them? It's like, and then you become triggered because you freaked out because you weren't listening, and you know you weren't listening, and now you're beating up on yourself. And then you try and do the best you can, but then you come back and your partner's, well, I told you this. You know, why weren't you listening? But I was listening. Well, no, you weren't. If you weren't giving your full attention, you weren't listening. So there are, when you're giving your full attention, another important part of this is when we are having a challenging conversation with our partner or anyone else, then we cannot hear what they're saying and try to formulate what we're going to say and really hear what they're saying.
Right.
Because our brain's going to switch between listening and thinking about what we're going to say. And so as we, instead of trying to formulate what you're going to say, just keep asking your partner questions to try and understand their perspective, because you're going to know what to say after then. Whereas if you try and start formulating what you're going to say while they're saying it, you're going to miss important pieces of the puzzle that would make it completely clear. And sometimes we're just waiting to ask a question and we're wanting to butt in with that question. I'm really good for that one. So what I need to do is just to step back, have that awareness, bring it back into my body, so I'm really paying attention. I'm really hearing what he's saying. And then if I'm not sure of what he's saying, I can listen to what he's saying and then ask him more questions to clarify what he's saying. So you said this, do you mean this or do you mean this? And get really clear. And then you're starting to have real communication. You've got the respect, you've got the empathy, you've got the awareness, and you've got the listening. And so you're all going to be, have a much better communication. You're going to feel more connected because you're respecting, you're staying present, and you're really hearing what each other are saying.
Nice. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, of course, people are going to respond better when they feel heard and when your behavior is present. And, you know, and I think, like you said, that is actually, unfortunately, not so common these days that people, you know, offer these things. And, you know, I mean, I think that, who was it? I read a book once and it said the best gift you can give to a child is your undivided attention.
Absolutely.
And I was like, yes, very, very true. So we just talked about some of the behaviors that connect us to our partners. What about some of the behaviors, in your opinion, that are the cause of disconnection from the one you love?
Oh, well, it's interesting that you're just talking about children, and the best thing that you can do is give your undivided attention. When we were children, we learnt our ABCs. Right? And in New Zealand, it was called your ABCs. And so the ABCs of what to pull yourself up on and to refrain from doing is accusations, blame, and not living a life of cause and effect. So when we become emotionally triggered, if we don't resolve that emotion in the moment that it's triggered, what's the next thing we do? We start accusing, we start blaming, we stop being responsible for what we are now creating, and that all has a backlash. It always comes back to us. We know when we're at the point of being triggered because we have a surge of adrenaline. Right? We all recognize that, but most of the time we allow that surge to erupt. And when it erupts, we accuse, we blame, and we don't take responsibility for our contribution to the misunderstanding.
Right.
Which will often come from not listening, not being empathetic, not respecting, not being aware. Right? So if we're being real with our communication, then we're going to be less accusing, less blaming, less critical. C could probably be critical as well. Don't criticize. We only criticize when we're triggered. Right. If we're taking responsibility for how we're feeling, we are going to become triggered less often. Now, I say less often because most of us are triggered 40 plus times a day, from when we're not paying attention and we spill something, or we're having a conversation and we miss our mouth because we're paying attention to the air instead of what we're doing. So we're constantly triggered throughout the day. Now, we can be in charge of our emotions, or our emotions will take charge of us and overpower us and lead to regretful situations where we say things we don't want to say. Well, we really want to say them in the moment, but after they're said, we're like, oh my gosh, how can I take that back? I so don't mean it. But when we have those emotional falling outs, it's like being on opposite sides of a boxing ring. You just come out firing and trying your best to hurt the other person, or just, in most cases, it's just to feel heard. But in trying to feel heard, all we can remember is all those past things that were so similar, and so we keep throwing those emotional punches. So it's all about coming back. Also, another critical thing is to deal with any problems in a timely manner. Sexual function issues tend to go on for years and years and years and years and years, for example, before they're dealt with.
Right.
And if you have a partner who likes sex, and for example, as a male might have a partner who's not fully engaging because she can't orgasm. And for her, sex is completely frustrating because she can never quite get there. She might have a nice emotional connection, but she can't quite get there. So she feels like she's failing, and then she will want sex less often just because she just can't get there, can never get there. Now, a guy who's losing his erection hardness or ejaculating early, he's devastated because he can't fulfill his partner. So as a male, he'll search the internet, he'll try to figure it out for himself. And I've had clients who tried to figure it out for 50 years before they found me. And it's like, oh, right, 50 years ago, I wasn't quite born. But, you know, they spend a lot of time, or they'd find my website and then there'd be 3 years. They'd wait for 3 years before contacting me. And then we'd like solve it in one session, or they'd buy the program and solve it there. Or I usually solve these issues within 1 to 3 sessions. So you can go for a lifetime of having these problems and feeling like you're failing and having all these relationship breakdowns. And sometimes it's like someone might have the sexual function issue and the partner leaves, not because of the actual sex, but because the partner, there is no real emotional connection, because the other partner just feels like they're failing and they're down on themselves, and they lose their confidence and their self-esteem. And with regards to attraction, confidence and self-esteem are hugely attractive qualities. And when we lose our confidence and our self-esteem, then we tend to become more depressed with our view of ourselves, and more needy of the other person to validate us. And that's a turn off. Doesn't matter who you are, that's a turn off when somebody is constantly needing verification from you that I'm okay. You know? And so when we're needing validation, that validation, it needs to come from inside ourselves, and it naturally comes when we're feeling balanced, when we're feeling emotionally connected. But that connection, it starts in ourselves.
Right. So how important is it to be emotionally and sexually compatible with someone in order to sustain that long-lasting connection?
Really important. But first of all, you've got to be emotionally and sexually balanced.
Right. Within
because
yourself.
It's a moving part. And if you're not emotionally balanced, or if you're not sexually balanced, as in you know how to balance your sexual focus, you're in charge of what your body does, you can feel turned on easily, you can enjoy sex with your partner, you can easily reach orgasm in perfect timing, then you're confident in yourself. And then it becomes more about, well, for example, sexual compatibility. Do we both like the same things? I once had a client years ago who had developed a premature ejaculation problem. And I said, well, how long are you in a relationship? Yes. How long have you been in a relationship? 2 years. It's like, your questionnaire says you've had this problem for 2 years. What is it that you want that your partner doesn't want? And he said, oh, well, I really like sexual fantasies. I like doing them for real. I like this and I like this. And he liked the thought of orgasm, orgies and foursomes and threesomes and group sex and this and this and this and this and this. He had this great list of all these things that he wanted to do. And I said to him, well, do you feel fulfilled just thinking about those things, or do you feel that you physically have to go out and do them? And he says, oh, I have to do them. And I said, okay, well, what's your minimum level of fantasy to feel fulfilled? And he says, oh, well, if she gave me oral every day, that would kind of be okay. It's like, okay, so what about your partner? What does she like? Oh, she doesn't like any of those things. I'm like, well, your base level is oral. Does she give you oral? And he says, oh, no, she just doesn't like it. She really doesn't like it. Now, just on a side note from that, oral with a man coming in your mouth is very different from just giving oral. Two different things. One can be very enjoyable, one not so much. Mm-hmm. So you need to clarify things around that. Now, with regards to this particular couple, I said, well, I can easily solve the premature ejaculation problem. This is how you do it. So he solved that problem. But I said that your main problem here is that you're sexually incompatible. You don't want the same things. If you were to stay together, it's just going to become more and more tense, because you will feel like you're never being fulfilled, you're not getting what you want. But your partner is going to feel pressured that she's unable to provide that level of fantasy for you, because she's going to lose herself if she tries to do that, because it's outside of what's right for her.
Right.
And he was absolutely devastated because he desperately loved her. But then he came back to me a couple of months later and he said, well, I thought long and hard about what you said, and you're absolutely right. And so I explained to my partner what I wanted and how I needed to be in my relationship. And she says, well, that's just not me. And so we parted ways. We're still really good friends, still love each other on a different sort of a level, but we understood that we couldn't be partners together. And so what's highlighted from the story is being clear on what you want And if your partner wants a higher level of fantasy and you're a lower level of fantasy, whereas you only like to think about those things maybe when you're masturbating, that's completely different, then perhaps every now and then you raise more to your partner's level by perhaps telling a sexy story.
Right.
Right, during sex, so your partner can really get off on the story, but just explain to them, now I don't want to do this every time.
Right.
This is a big thing for me to do, so I need you to come down to here so that we just have lovely, enjoyable, connected sex, and I don't have to make that effort. And you can often get your partner to start the story. Okay, give me a starting point. Because if you don't really like telling those sorts of stories, you go, well, what do I do? Where do I start?
Right.
So you can start with something you might have seen or something that your partner likes, and just get them to help to guide you from there. Yeah, so it's challenging. It can be really challenging, but if you're not sexually compatible, you won't have a strong emotional connection, because you'll always feel this discord there. You'll always feel the disconnect. And there's nothing worse than trying to be someone that you're not to make your partner happy.
Mm-hmm,
It's
mm-hmm.
going to backfire in the long run.
Right, right. So when, again, going back to that space of, you've just come out of a relationship and you've done the healing and you're in the space of opening up and dating again, how can you tell if you're emotionally and sexually compatible with someone? I mean, let's start with sexually first, since we're talking about sexually. How can you tell if you're sexually compatible with someone? I mean, I know that it really depends on someone's sexual history, as how many partners they've had. So maybe they don't know what kind of different types of sexual connections are out there. So does that make sense? Not asking the question of how would you know?
You'd know through asking questions, but you'd also know from how they behave during sex.
Right. Okay.
And so if you're both like sex and you're both wanting to sexually connect and sex is enjoyable for both of you, it's a good indication that you've got some compatibility there. But you've just got to watch out for the red flags. Like, if the partner asks you, do you like anal sex? They're only going to ask you that if they like anal sex. Otherwise, it's not going to be something they think of.
All right.
So if you think, well, no, don't like anal sex, then you would need to ask that person, is this something that you need to feel fulfilled sexually?
Right. That's a good question to ask.
Right. And from there, you want to watch their body language, because at the start of a relationship, we're hell bent on pleasing each other.
Right.
We're going to say anything to enhance that connection, especially as women. It tends to be more as women that we will do this, right? And so we need to get clear on what it is that they're asking. So if they start talking about fantasy sex, then you want to ask questions and find out what it is that they want and what it is that they desire. You're wanting to find their base level, and if you're a match at that base level, and if you can just do those crossovers, that's going to show to you that there's sexual compatibility there. If their eyes light up talking about something that you don't like doing, it's a red flag. You should look at not getting too emotionally involved there.
Mm.
Most importantly, it's asking it if they need to do that physically to feel fulfilled, if they just like thinking about it when they're masturbating. Do you like talking about it? Or you're just wanting to find out those different levels of fantasy to see if you're compatible there. Like a lot of guys, they're happy with their partner wearing lingerie, nice lingerie, and that's a level of fantasy that they're perfectly happy with. But there are just some on that higher end of the scale, and a lot of that's got to do with sexual imprinting, right? So what we've experienced in our life experience. For some people, they've come from their parents might have had an open marriage or a open sexual marriage, and they have learned that that's normal, right? And so from a person's background, they're going to be imprinted differently sexually. Everything can be learned, but not everything will be enjoyed. So if you want to experiment and say, okay, well, let's try that. I haven't tried that before. Let's give it a go. And for either partner, you've really got to monitor that and be honest. I like that aspect, but overall, I 90% didn't like it. It's not for me. I don't want to do this. So that's on a sexual compatibility aspect. If someone has a sexual function issue, such as not being able to orgasm for women, or ejaculating early, or losing erection hardness for men, that is so easy for me to solve. Easy. It's not an issue. Might be an issue now, but honestly, I can sort it out so quickly. And it's a matter of knowing how to focus your attention. So for example, a man who loses his erection hardness will often lose it during foreplay, giving his partner foreplay, because he's focused too much on her experience and not giving his brain enough arousing signals, right? It's not necessarily 9 times out of 10, it's not a medical condition. It's just a focusing on the wrong technique at the wrong time. This is how you fix it.
Right. Well, that's definitely good to know.
Absolutely. So with, and for a male, balancing a sexual focus, he's walking a tightrope, right? Because he's got to stay hard, but he's also got to stay in control of ejaculation. And we're not taught a sexual education as we're growing up, not relevant to actually engaging in the sexual act. And so there is a lot of guesswork involved. And this is why 43% of women have problems experiencing orgasm. 31% of men have problems with a weak erection or ejaculating early, because they don't know how to balance their sexual focus. So that's easy for me to resolve, right? Now, with emotional compatibility, you're both committed to growing as people, right? So if you're into health and fitness and your partner is a couch potato, or just like sitting gaming and watching Netflix, and you like being out and about, then you're not going to be emotionally compatible, because you have different things that are important to you. So if you have different values, conflicting values is more of an issue there, and conflicting interests. While it's great that you both have interests and hobbies that you're fully engaged in, that you love doing, they fulfill you as a person, there also needs to be a shared direction here, right? So that you both have the things that you love doing, but then you come together and you share these experiences. If you don't have that, then there's going to be a feeling of disconnection and annoyance, that you see other couples coming together and doing these things, but you don't have that yourself. Something that I recommend to my clients to enhance connection and attraction is dancing together. Things like in the States, you've got West Coast Swing. In the UK, Australia, New Zealand, you've got Ciroc, which is very similar to West Coast Swing. So it's not like ballroom and where it's all prim and proper. It's more that you can dance to any kind of modern music. And you can go to a bar and you dance like this, and all the other women there are just like, oh my gosh, I wish my man would do that with me. And all the guys are like, oh wow, man, I wish I could do that. Yeah. And the two people dancing are just so connected and so in awe of each other, because it's super sexy. And you go home from dancing, you're guaranteed you're going to have great sex that night. Yeah. Because it's just so arousing having your partner looking so sexy and hot and leading, especially for women being led around the dance floor, with all of the feminist movement, we have to an extent lost our femininity and our connection and the polarity of that connection. You can be a super strong woman and have a super strong sexy man as well. And you can have I deal mostly with men and women, males and females, but if you've got those appendices, everything works the same, right? The attraction works the same. We are either enhancing attraction or we're doing those behaviors which are disconnecting us.
Right.
And when we don't feel emotionally connected, we don't feel attracted. Yeah, so it's all of these little pieces of the puzzle, which is so very simple as individual pieces. When they come together the wrong way or they don't quite come together, it's just because you've got one piece of that puzzle in the wrong place. Now you use that and you just put that over there. Complacency, you put way over there. That's not part of the puzzle. Don't let it be part of the puzzle. It's going to kill your relationship. But when you're consistently working towards a happy and healthy relationship with yourself and with other people, the people around you, then that part of your brain that's always looking for what you're focused on will help you achieve it.
I'm really glad you mentioned the relationship with ourselves. I think when we think of relationships, we tend to often think of relationships with others, but really the biggest and probably the most important relationship is the one we have with ourselves.
Oh, yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about your Real Easy Love program and how it helps people stay happy in their relationships and keep that strong connection to each other?
Right, so the Real Easy Love program is a one-on-one consulting program, and that's about going through these aspects of emotions, relationship, and thinking. So it's about being in charge of your biology first. You can't succeed on a ongoing basis without constantly tripping yourself up and tripping your relationship up if you're not in charge of your emotions. So it's understanding how to be in charge of your biology, how to reset yourself to a point of calm instantly, because we are constantly being triggered by other people. Right? We need to know how to bring ourselves into a place of calm so that we can respond rather than react.
Right.
If you're responding, you're going to be able to resolve any situation that presents itself, and you're going to keep enhancing your life experience. So that's key. Then there is being in charge of your sexual self as well. So any issues there, if there aren't any issues, then this is how to orgasm on demand anytime you want without touching your clitoris. You don't need that, right? So it's how to coordinate your body so it's in peak performance working for you. So what you're doing is you're reducing those stress hormones, and as you reduce the stress hormones, what happens? You get an increase in serotonin and dopamine without needing an external feeling fix like chocolate shopping, cigarettes, alcohol, drugs. You don't need that. Whenever you feel the need for an external fix, you apply the emotional reset technique, you come back to that place of calm, you get your dopamine hit. It's like, yeah, well, this is fun. Instead of losing what often happens at the end of a relationship when we're in that breakdown cycle is that we lose ourselves as a person, and our thoughts spiral us down. We remember that and our thoughts spiral us down. So you need to know how to bring yourself back into that place of calm, and then to know how to direct your thoughts. Okay, now that you know how to be in charge of your biology, this is how to be in charge of your thinking, because that influences your biology. It's our thinking more than anything else that triggers us and makes us feel like crap. So you be in charge of your thinking. Now you're working towards what you want. Then it's understanding the behaviors that are causing you as an individual to contribute to relationship breakdown. So you can be in charge of your biology, you can be in charge of how you're feeling, but if you're constantly triggering the people around you, you're still not going to have that unlimited happiness that we're all seeking, right? So it's just getting all of these things into balance so that you can move forward with confidence, and you can also teach the people around you how to come into a place of calm. So as we heal ourselves, then we are more able to help other people from a place of strength. And that's what the Mates Cafe Connect Up is all about. It's that platform like Facebook, but for erasing lonely and building people up and building each other up.
Nice. And we'll drop a link to that so you can find out more, checking it out below. We're just running out of time, so I just wanted to ask you, there's one question I'm asking all of our contributors is, if someone came to you tomorrow and they broke up with their partner yesterday, we don't know why they broke up, we don't know the circumstances surrounding it. All we know is that they have their heart in their hands and they're in a lot of pain. What would be the best piece of advice or some comforting words you might have for them?
Is to bring yourself, get really clear on what you want, right? Stop fighting what you're feeling. An emotional response is just, it's a stress response. It's a surge of adrenaline and cortisol. If you don't try and make it go away, it just immediately, that level just calms right down. So stop fighting how you're feeling and just bring your awareness back into your body so that you're resetting into a place of calm. And you will find that you need to do that a lot, because every time you go out in public, you see couples together, you see them laughing, you see them happy, you see them holding hands. What's important now is to just keep bringing yourself back into that place of calm so that you can start formulating what you want. Now, what you need to do is to understand how to move forward. You want to be in charge of yourself emotionally and sexually. I do have a 20-minute complimentary session on my website too that people can go for.
Mm-hmm.
But the most important thing for them to do in the moment is to just bring themselves into a place of calm. Get clear on what you want. Start thinking about, I like, not how you want to feel, I want to feel this way. I like feeling happy. I like feeling satisfied. I like feeling connected. I really like feeling connected with myself too. So you can start talking yourself into how you want to feel, and that part of your brain that's always looking for what to bring you next will start connecting you more with yourself. And then it's just that matter of knowing how to be in charge of your biology, be in charge of your emotions, your sexual relationship, and your behaviors in that relationship moving forward. Because it's very straightforward knowledge, and it's completely logical. And as you understand this knowledge, then you will feel whole within yourself. And when you feel whole within yourself, you are super sexy to another person. You have an aura around you, which just lights up any room that you walk into. And people are attracted to that. But if you're trying to disconnect from how you're feeling, you're just going to feel more and more disconnected and view yourself as disconnected. And so it's a matter of bringing yourself back. If you bring yourself back into your body, you bring yourself back into the present.
Nice. Thank you. And I know you have a free gift for the audience today. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So this is a report written on how to navigate any sexual problems experienced behind bedroom doors. And so it gives an explanation of, if you're, for example, if you're having problems reaching orgasm, this is why. This is where you're becoming distracted. And also for male sexual function issues, if he's losing erection hardness, this is what's contributing towards it. This is what he needs to do. For a male ejaculating early, this is what he's doing wrong. This is a bit more an understanding on balancing your sexual focus, so that you can not only fix any sexual problems, you can take your sex life through the roof. Right?
Yeah.
There is no ceiling on orgasms. Once you understand the procedure that your brain needs for sex to stay on track, because as a woman, it's like if you have problems reaching orgasm, what are you doing? Oh, is all this feel good? All this feels really good. Is it? And then from that moment you start questioning, your brain is no longer receiving relevant signals to completing the orgasm program. So it switches off. But once you know how to coordinate your body, your actions with your attention, then in the specific actions that will make you orgasm, like you almost don't have a choice in it. And so once you understand this knowledge and technique, then it's like you practice. With your emotions, you practice, and it just becomes more and more fun. And when life is fun, then we're fun to be with. Yeah, it's a really fun process. Honestly, these things are so easy to solve. It's so straightforward to solve. It's just the correct knowledge and the correct techniques, and then play practice.
Well, that sounds super useful. I'm sure a lot of listeners will get a lot of value out of that. So you can find that by clicking the link below. And Jacqui, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate all of your input. And we'll hope to see you again.
Thank you.